Hello, beautiful souls. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to my live stream. Let me send this. I hope that wherever you are in the world today, it is amazing and sunshiny and perfect. It has been super hot here and all sunshine for the whole day going into this whole week. And we are about to come into August, which is the hottest month. But I'm excited. I am so here for it. I'm so here for the energy of August because it is shaping up to be phenomenal. Like big stuff coming. Thank you. Thank you for being here. If you can see me, if you can hear me, if you can tell me in the chat, that would be amazing. I do have the chat up. If at any point in time during this live you have questions you would like me to answer, please feel free to send them in a direct message for me to answer live or write them in the chat because I can see everybody in the chat as well. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. If this is your first time on my channel, thank you and welcome. My name is Amanda Frick. I am a spiritual intuitive and I have the ability to see in multiple dimensional frequencies and reality. I specialize in mentoring and facilitating awakening for healers and light workers in the world. They are my passion to work with in expanding intuition and psychic vision and sight and helping to build and heal the world. So that is my everything. That is what I do. That is what I'm passionate about. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you a couple of different experiences that I've had with some of the most common energies that we deal with here in our human experience. And everything that I talk about, I will be talking about from my personal experience with these things and my personal meditations and information that I have gathered along the way of over a decade of doing healing work, clearing work, facilitating work, and all of that fun stuff. But again, it is from my own perspective, and I'm just sharing a handful of what is actually possible in these energies. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I would love to hear from you. Hello, Cass. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm going to start with the thing that we experience less often, and I'm going to end with the energy that we experience almost on a daily basis. And at the very end, I am going to share with you what is going on coming up in August. And then I'm also going to share with you some of the things opening up and happening around the Lionsgate and some new opportunities for me to be out in the world on the platform and just all the things. There's so many things happening. So let's dive into today's topics. I know that there is the word demon in the title, and I will not be covering demons. I decided that I wanted to cover that particular range of interdimensional being in its own video, maybe with other types of interdimensional beings as well. So for the purpose of this video today, I'm going to be talking about the energy of a soul and a soul frequency. I'm going to be talking about the energy of what ghosts are and how we come to have haunted places. And I will be finishing up with talking about the energy of emotional entities. Glitchy, yes, I'm sorry. It might be my internet connection in all reality. And then we're going to finish up with emotional entities because those are things that we deal with on a daily basis. Let me check my internet connection too. Okay, so it says I'm still connected. Sometimes it will drop me and then reconnect me. So hopefully it will clear up as time goes on because it can be super sketchy some days. I'm so excited, all the things. So we're going to start with the energy of a soul. Now, the frequency of the soul is incredibly high. It vibrates at a really high sound. If you can hear it, it kind of spans multiple different sounds, but they're very, very, very high pitched and they're very difficult to hear if you're into sound. As a color, the most common colors of a soul source energy is white and gold and violet, although they can be other colors as well. The next most common I have perceived personally was yellow, And then a combination of like the yellow green or the yellow purple or the purple white combination. And those are the most common frequencies that I see for the color. And they're very, very loud. They're very loud. They make your ears ring. But most often, the biggest things to understand about soul source energy is when you are present with a soul energy, it is very calming. It is very rarely makes people uneasy. It very rarely gives people weird feelings. It is most commonly received in a loving way where we feel peaceful, we feel held, we feel comfortable, and there's a different level of peace in the room, and there's a different level of stillness in the space as well. Things tend to almost become like water when a soul is very close to the physical reality, and everything gets very, very still, and there's a heavy silence, but the weight is like water. That is how I would describe it in ways of an energy. Now, when you experience these types of energies, we often don't have to do anything about it. They tend to be very fleeting because it's very difficult to maintain a closeness with that high frequency of sound. So they often don't present often in the physical reality where we would perceive them. And when they do, it's often, if we feel it, it's often because we are open to it, and or because we are focusing on it, and that's kind of what makes it easier. The way that a soul consciousness interacts with us, and I've done many, many mediumship readings. I have reached out to multiple frequencies of energy to reach out to loved ones who were in the body and had passed on. I have interacted with many, many, many of them. And the most common thing for them is that we have to reach for them as they reach for us. It's not a one-way show. So the energy of an actual soul in the present space, being present with you in a room, something had to line up to bring all of the elements of energy into the right alignment to hold space for that to occur. And that's also why it tends to feel really good, because the elevation of the whole space has to rise in order for them to be present in that room. And that's been a really big common theme. There are souls who do not have the ability to bridge that gap at all and cannot reach beyond certain ethereal layers to affect the physical human earth plane. And so that is also very common, but that's also why we don't interact with direct souls as often as we interact with the other two things on our list. And again, there's nothing you really need to do when you have an experience like that. It's always good to honor and bless and give thanks to a soul, because if they're showing up in your life in a way where you can feel them or hear them, there's very often a reason, but sometimes that reason is as simple as bringing you comfort or bringing you peace. And it doesn't have to be a really big story or a really big open end. It can literally just be to bring a peaceful energy message to the person. So we don't really have to do anything, but I always like to give grace and to honor the soul that shows up for me. And I do it a lot, especially in my everyday, because when I meditate with my own soul source sound and others. And so I just make it a habit. And whenever I encounter a soul in the wild, in the grocery store, following somebody around or something like that, if we have that recognition of I see you, you see me, then of course I give that grace and that acknowledgement to that soul. And they always give something amazing in energy exchange in return, because that's how the nature of energy works. And I'm very honored that I get to be able to see it. So moving on from that, we are going to get into the energy of ghosts. Now, this is one of my favorite topics because I remember so vividly the lessons that I have learned about the frequency of ghosts and hauntings. So there are a couple of different types of haunting places, and they tend to be very negative or very dense. They're not always good. They're usually associated with some type of trauma. And that is the overall belief around haunted places. There are other reasons for places to be haunted, but the biggest things to understand about a home that is haunted or a location that is haunted is that ghosts are in reality memories of people and experiences that occurred in a place. Now, when an event happens, now this could be a happy event, this could be super positive. When you walk into a home and it has a comfortable feeling, it has a high vibrational feeling, those are memories of happiness and happy people and happy events. When there is a strong religious component, there tends to be an actual structure, an actual orb that holds that ritualistic energy in the space, and that gives it the overall feeling and it radiates that energy. And then there is the energy of trauma and the energy of missing or longing, where an event happened in that space that was so emotionally charged that the people involved are like on a record player, and there is a holograph of these people and this incident, and it plays out over and over and over again in that location until that energy can be released, can be cleared. I will never forget learning about that, because it was at a time in my career where I was doing a lot of house clearings for people, and I was running into multiple different frequencies of energy on a daily basis. And so I was meditating with all of this. And one day my angel came to me in meditation on a day where I was getting ready to do like 2 house clearings that day. And I kept feeling like I was missing something. I was having really amazing results and we were really clearing things out. And I just felt like I'm missing a piece of the puzzle, or missing a piece of the truth. And my higher consciousness said, the thing that you're missing is that ghosts aren't real. You're not talking to a soul. You're not talking to anything that's real, that's going to give you an answer that makes sense. And it just clicked. And I was like, no way, really? And so the next time that I walked into a house clearing and I had my higher consciousness with me, guiding the whole process, and I said, show me what am I seeing? What am I observing? And she walked me through the process of what is most commonly understood to be a haunting and how it is a memory. Now, aside from the memory, let's talk about people, because people will often say, oh, there's a ghost, there's a shadow, there's a ball of energy, or there's somebody standing at the foot of my bed or in my closet. And that goes into the remembered energy of the ego personality of a person that used to be there. And how when we are in the shadow of that person, the ego of that person is one of the densest things that sticks into a place. And it will take the form of the way it used to look, the way it used to be, the way that person used to present, and often presenting themselves in the worst possible light, because the ego projection, the anger or resentment or frustration or the trauma is usually what sticks out in those memories. And all of that energy can be absorbed into the walls, into the carpets, into the windows, less the windows, but it is possible, into the environment itself. And when you get a place that is very, very haunted, you have to go in, you have to actually pull the energy out of that place. You have to pull the energy out. You have to move it. That energy can also be imprinted onto objects. Beds are a big one. Things that happened in people's beds, they get very dense and they stick a lot. And so it happens to beds and pillows. It can happen to toys or objects or like vehicles. Like those are some really big hot spots for those types of energies to just be on repeat. The other common thing for that is then that energy, when it becomes dense enough, can attach to a person. Hard time shaking that feeling of being haunted or that feeling that they had at a certain location of that memory home. And then that memory becomes something else, which is the entity part that we'll be discussing here in a minute. But in those places, the biggest things that you need to know about the energy of ghosts and the energy of haunted places, it could be the land. The land could have experienced so many powerful rituals, experiences. I know that battle zones, like the old battlegrounds where people would fight and die, they have these very large energy bubbles that are bubbles of memory. And when you walk into them, they're very, very strong. I have yet to find an effective way to uproot a memory from the planet, because that is part of the planet's consciousness and subconsciousness and not ours. And so it's much more difficult if you have a piece of land that exists in its own memory bubble. It's very difficult to function inside of, because those memories get very physical, very fast, and very real. But when the energy is sit for long enough, it will imprint very strong. And when it imprints, there are ways that you can pull up the imprint. And we're going to talk about some of those. But ghosts and hauntings, they have no power over the physical world. They only have the power that you give them. So let's say there's a haunted house and there's like shadow people in the windows, but nobody lives there, right? It's going to stay that way. They're just going to be the shadow people in the windows, and people are going to avoid it. But if, say, a family moves in, and let's say that they're overall pretty happy with their life, you know, maybe somebody is dealing with an anger issue, or somebody's really depressed and they don't like their job. Once those people move in, the energy of emotion starts to add to the memory of the house and pile on top of itself. And that's when a ghost or haunting experience starts to affect the physical plane. So they only have the power that we believe them to have, and the power that we give them through thought and emotion. The second thing to understand is that this energy can be connected to people and places and things. So if you're in a situation where it's really, really bad, I have seen some really, really bad situations where we had to clear the blinds and the curtains and the carpet and every single object that was in a room, because of the level of saturation of the memory and the trauma being added onto by emotional trauma in the moment from the people living in the home. So it can get very, very dense, and it can even connect to your pets. Now, the pets that are most susceptible to ghosts are also the most susceptible to entities, which we'll cover in a minute. Those are going to be your cats and your dogs and your hamsters and your warm-blooded feline mammal friends. And the things that are going to be less affected are going to be your reptiles, like your snakes or your iguanas or your chameleons will be less affected by those types of energy. But pets are not to be taken out of the equation when they're in a home with a haunting. Hello, Danielle. I'm so happy you're here, lovely. Which part makes sense? I hope it all makes sense. The other thing to know and remember when you're dealing with ghosts is that you are interacting with an ego aspect memory of a person or an experience. So it's important to know that going into it, because it changes how you feel about the projection. If you go into a situation and you believe that what you're interacting with is an unsettled soul that needs to be crossed over, you're going to have more empathy, you're going to have more sympathy, you're going to have more emotional connection to the outcome of what's going on. Whereas if you can take yourself outside of that and be like, oh, that's not actually a living, breathing soul with memories in reality, you'll have that emotional separation, and it won't add to the negativity of the experience. And I feel like this is where so many people in the spiritual world really fall short, is that it is difficult to differentiate between reality and fiction when left to our own mind. And if it was not for the guidance of my higher self, I would still be in this pattern of thinking that every ghost I encountered was real and needed me to help them in some way. But they don't. Sometimes they're just a memory. The house is holding energy that impacts mine. Yes. Suicide in my house and depression feelings can get heavy. Oh my goodness, yes. That is a really deep one. If you have any questions around that, please type them in there. I would be happy to answer them. Suicide is a really interesting trauma to occur in a household. When we moved to Michigan, the house that my parents bought was a single wide trailer, and someone had committed suicide in that trailer. And we did not know that at the time. But the first week that I lived there, was very traumatic for me because I remember walking in there and there was what I perceived was this crazy lady living in this bedroom of the house. And I won't get into all of the details, but it was very graphic. And I thought, man, this person is just crazy, but nobody else sees her and nobody else knows she's here. So what am I going to do about this? And then my mom had commented on some energies going on in the house. And I said, hey, I think something really bad happened here because I keep seeing this girl and this is like what she's doing. And my parents actually inquired about that. And that's how we found out, like, yes, indeed, somebody had done that. And it was very graphic. And so that can be really interesting. And how I handled that, that was prior to me ever understanding what I understand now about that situation. And I'm very fortunate because I was able to clear the energy out of that space with, and I know that my mother was also doing it, even though she did not talk to me directly about it. And so we were able to clear that energy out and it didn't bother us after that day. But it's very interesting because that energy can play on multiple avenues of the psyche and can really get loud in that subconscious voice. So understanding those three things, they don't have power over the physical world except that which you give them. They can be connected and ingrained, imprinted into any object, person, or place, even the land. And then what you're interacting with is a memory. It's an ego aspect of a person that used to be. It is not necessarily somebody there that you're going to have to go in and clear out and like show them the door to the light, which is a whole other topic in and of itself, which I think I talked about in my last live video when talking about purgatory and helping people out of that place. And so some of the things that these ghosts are not demons. Ghosts are not souls. Ghosts are not inherently evil or good or bad. They just are. Oh, I'm wondering if that's the voice that's been picked up on in my sleep app. You know, at some point, Danielle, I will do an energy blueprint of what I perceive in your house. Oh, your house was vacant for 10 years prior to you buying it. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll keep some people away. So what can you do about these energies? And I mean it, Danielle, there will be a time where I can give you some things about your house, depending on the workload that you already have. But here's some things that you can do to handle the energy of memory. I call them the energy of memory more than I call them ghosts. Most people call them ghosts. I call them memories. Don't directly interact with the ego memory of the individuals in the memory. When you do that, you create emotional attachment and you make things harder for you, not easier. If you have the ability to observe the pattern, you will find it. You'll find a pattern. Observe the pattern. When do they show up? What's happening in the house? Was somebody upset? What triggered the visual or the light flicker or the TV flicker? All things that I have seen and navigated. Like what instigated it? What time of day was it? Does it happen at the same time every day? Does it happen when somebody feels a certain way? And then kind of take note of what the pattern is, because if you can observe the pattern, you can start to unravel it from the place. Energy clearing of the space is super, super important. So talking about the energy clearing of the space, I'm going to repeat myself a couple of times because some of these that we also use for entities. Salt water is absolutely magical. I put it in a spray bottle and I dilute. I put water and salt and I will spray the objects in my house, and that will lift out the layer of energy that's on the surface. Okay. Now, sage will work, but it only works for certain frequencies of energies. So it doesn't work for everything. I know a lot of people think it works for everything and they use it in all kinds of different situations, but it doesn't work for everything. And that's why things will come back and you have to do it again and again and again. So get your salt water, get your clear quartz crystals, get your amethyst crystals, and get your crystalline grids going. one of the things that's going to help uproot that memory from the material, from the ground, from the wood planks on the floor and in the walls, what's going to help move that energy is getting healing energy going in that space. So once you clear the air, literally and figuratively, then you can put together a grid that is focused on settling and releasing the memory from that place. Now, if you are a healer in any capacity, you can put the energy of Reiki into the floor of your house, into your carpet, into your bed, into your walls. Now, I call it claiming my space because when I do it, I visualize and move energy. I am becoming the channel for energy to move through my body. And then I touch my walls and I put that energy into the walls and I watch it take over the entire house. And I do that repeatedly until it starts to come out. The reason that Reiki, prana, focused energy healing will work in this way is because you're working with an energetic imprint on a physical object. It's very much like healing a person. We help people move through big emotional spikes, big physical and mental emotional triggers, and we can use the same energy in our space. And you will be shocked at the way your house feels when you do that because it changes. It changes and it feels amazing. It feels amazing. It's a good practice to get into the habit of. So that is how I recommend you handle any weird upheaval, ghost haunting like energies in your home. And keep in mind, you are the one in control there, and you are the one controlling how much you feed them, how much energy you give them, or how little energy you give them. Does anybody have any questions about what I said so far? Please feel free to plug them in. The energy of burial grounds always fascinates me because there are some burial grounds that have really heavy, like vibrant soul energy. And then there are ones that are absolutely silent with nothing, like nothing and no one there. All right, the third thing that I want to talk about today, which these energies we encounter every day in our lives, which is why I wanted to talk about them and how to navigate them, because at some point in your life you've been dealing with these energies and you may or may not know it. And how we talk to ourselves is a huge player in the game of energy. The third thing that we're going to talk about are emotional entities. Now, these are entities as I define entities, and I encounter three main kinds of entities regularly. And I mean from passing people in the grocery store, to passing people on the highway, to being in my own house, okay? There are emotional entities, which is the kind that we're going to talk about today. There are thought and ego projected entities, and then there are interdimensional entities. Now, each one of them are different. They carry very specific and different frequencies for each one. So how you handle each one will be a little bit different, but for thought entities and emotional entities, this is what you can do about them. Well, the first thing you have to understand is what is an emotional entity. So along the lines where we're talking about hauntings and ghosts and how that's a memory, while an entity is created from an emotion that is projected long enough from someone to collect in a little puddle. And that little puddle starts very low, usually low to the ground because the ground is dense. The wood is dense, concrete is dense, walls are dense. Everything that has a dense or low frequency energy can collect emotional energy. When that emotional energy develops, it can become a memory, or it can become an entity, or it becomes an imprint of a memory that leads to developing an entity. Okay, so an entity is an animal. It has basic instincts, and its instinct is to trigger an emotion that allows it to feed on, to survive. That's it. That's it. That's all it is. I will never forget when I learned that either, because I learned that from someone who I follow, an enlightened master, and I will never forget, those aren't real. We created those. And I was just in awe, because then all of a sudden everything about what I was dealing with entities started to make sense. Because the only reason they were powerful is because we kept thinking they were real and kept thinking they were physical and kept thinking that they were dangerous when they weren't. And it completely changed my ability to clear a space so that the aura, the auric field, the energy that I carry now, part of the reason that it carries that stillness is because I have a level of understanding and knowing that emotional entities are not real. They are a projection of an emotion, a human emotion, an ego emotion that only exists in the physical plane of reality, in the thought plane of projection, and is only fed by us. And once we stop feeding that, we can then transmute it, change it, remove it. We can make it non-existent if we want to. That's an emotional entity. Its whole purpose is to grow. All it does is eat. It just collects more of itself. And then eventually it'll take on personality traits of what I call the imposter. It's the negative inner voice. It's the piece that says you're ugly, or why did you do that? Or you don't need to eat that. Or, oh, I just don't feel like it today. It's the absolute pessimistic voice, because that voice is what triggers the emotions of bad feelings to self, bad feelings to others. And as that feeling grows, then the entity gets stronger. Now, over time, an entity starts low on the ground, floor level energy. And then as that puddle kind of grows, it'll be where you'll walk into a room and you're like, it doesn't feel really good. Or you'll have a sudden mood change and you won't know why. And then you may walk out of that room or that house or that building and it'll change and you'll feel a little bit better. You'll feel like you'll be able to breathe. Now, when they get to the point of actually taking on a personality and starting to attach to people, is when you can walk into a room and you have a sudden mood shift and it's noticeable. It's like, I'm triggered for no reason. I'm angry or I'm frustrated. And you can identify very clearly you walked into that house or that state in one mood and it immediately changed. That's when it starts to take on more of a voice, more of a personality, and it'll attach to a person that has a lot of trauma, that has a lot of unhealed trauma, that has a lot of self-worth issues. They like that because that energy will keep flowing with very little effort. Then you're going to start seeing things move in the corner of your eyes. That's when you're going to start seeing the balls of dark energy floating around. That's when you're going to see shadows that aren't there. On the most extreme cases with entities, they can affect the physical plane because they only exist here with us. They open and close doors. They turn lights on and off. They move things. They move things off shelves. They're some of your scarier haunting experiences, are usually memories that have developed into very powerful entities. And they will stay in one place as long as people keep going through that place, or they will go home with people into a new environment where there's more. There's just more. And that sole purpose of that is to maintain control, because then it's idealism. It never has individuality. It only ever has instinct. And so it will grow until it gets very large. Now, the trouble with that is when we are having negative self-thoughts, that's really easy for it to get into our mind. And then we start having thoughts about ourselves that aren't pleasant, that get very negative and very low. And they can be very difficult to get out of. And then we can start to blur the lines between what's real and what's not, how we really feel and how we don't, because we're feeling it all. Turn your heat down. Is that what I said, or did it glitch? So some of those energies, that's when those start to become really, really negative, and then they affect the physical world, and they can be very scary, which then reinforces the idea that this must be a demon or this must be something really real, and it creates a lot of fear. Now, the beautiful piece about that, having the information that I just gave you, is understanding that you have the power in that situation to, again, clear that energy out and to stop feeding it. Some of the things that are super effective in dealing with entity energy is to have a solid energetic clearing space and reestablish that healing energy in the structure of your home. When you do that, it's going to loosen everything up so that it doesn't stick, so that it doesn't hold on, and then you can address the entity as it is. Now, you can do multiple things with it. You can, if you know how, you can open the door and send it somewhere else, and then it ceases to exist because it only exists here. You can bottle it, you can put it in a stone, you can transmute it with a grid, you can transmute it in the ground, you can I don't know how to describe what I normally do with an entity. So entities cannot exist within my bubble unless I allow them to. Oh, you were asking if they can turn your heat down. I kept waking up freezing because my heat was down. Yes, they can. They can mess with anything electronic, and often they can mess with anything non-electronic. Like they'll move pencils, they'll move books, they'll knock things off from shelves, they'll turn TVs on and off, or they'll make your TV reception go out and you'll just see a blank screen. Things like that. They'll open and close your doors. They can definitely turn your heat down, especially if that is something that triggers you. If that's something that's a button. But if it's not an entity, but a memory, it could be turning the heat down because it's paranoid about the heat bill. And that's something that that person always did, was turn the heat down. So it could also be that. Yes, they can hide things. Absolutely, they can. You think, yes, absolutely, they can hide things. Now, the thing that's interesting about them hiding things, so the Fae energy, they like to hide things by masking it from you. So you'll set it down somewhere and they will mask it so you won't see it. And you'll be like, why isn't it there? What entities have to do is actually physically relocate it because they can't mask anything. And that's the other thing about energy. Energy cannot be anything except that which it is. So when people share with me an experience that this being disguised themselves as something and came to them, and then they later found out that thing disguised itself, they are only able to disguise themselves if you believe what they're telling you or want to believe what they're showing you. Because I have yet to encounter an entity that attempted to mask itself as anything that I could not see through. And then I was confused. Like, why would you think I didn't think you were real? Like, it messes me up. But entities, when they hide things, they actually relocate them. They don't just mask them, and they can't blink them away into another dimension. They're still in the house somewhere. Now, Cassie, are you still in your living situation with your dad? Because yours is going to be a little bit unique and different as well. Oh, so what do you do about these animals, these entities that are looking for energy to keep a hold of? Having your energy clearing, salt sprays, alcohol sprays, they work amazing to lift that up, especially if it hasn't had time to sit there. If the energy has not had time to sit there, it won't collect and become anything else. So knowing that's what it is gives you a head up on that. Is that like faces in our meditations, or what is familiar? Okay, and you don't live with him. He's at your brother's? Okay. We picture things as we know them. So, yes, we picture things as we know them. One of the questions that okay. Yeah, because when you have someone, and again, I don't know the state that he's in, But that opens up some doorways with what he's going on, with what he's going through right now, opens up some doorways. So there's some other things that could be going on in your situation too, but I would have to peek in and look at it. So when I when I first started acknowledging, shall we say, that I was seeing and hearing and putting things together, um, I was still under the impression that things could trick you all the time and that things could change themselves all the time. And they can to a certain degree. But entities, ghosts, and memories, they can't mask. They can't be anything that other than what they are. But if they can elicit a response out of you by showing you something or making you to make you feel a certain way, they will. And if they want to gain trust, they'll show you something that you trust that'll initiate that trust. And then if you don't have the ability to feel past that or to follow that gut feeling because it's always there, then you will create that bond inadvertently because you didn't listen to your gut. The gut feeling that you have tells you what is real and what is not. What is the authentic face of what you're looking at and what is not. And people that do work with me long term, like, will get ready to do a session, and a week before the session, they'll start having dreams about me, and I will be the villain in their nightmare. And then at the end of the nightmare, it was something else trying to mask as me, to keep them away from me, to instill that fear connection. But in the dream, they were very confused and they went through with the healing anyway. And then as soon as that healing was gone, so was the thing that wanted to keep them away from me. And it really makes big shifts for people's lives. So masking on their part can and does happen, but you have to be willing to see it through and to feel it through to its essence. What is it? Because it cannot hide its essence. It is only us that can be blind to it. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So after you clear out the energy and after you are like uprooting and putting the Reiki or the prana or the healing energy into your home and establishing your space, the biggest thing you can do for the energy of entities is know thyself. Know where your inner critic is and start to cultivate healthy, positive inner self thoughts. Because those are the ones that entities will feed on. They'll feed on that lack of self-worth. They will feed on that exhaustion. They will feed on the negative way you feel about yourself. And it makes them very strong and it makes them very difficult to get rid of because it's reinforcing itself in your mind that it's a physical reality that has to exist with you when it doesn't. So know thyself, know what your fears are, know what you're afraid of about yourself, and take that by the horns because knowledge of self is power. And it is so much more powerful than what you were ever told in school, than what we were ever told by our peers. Like, oh, know thyself is super valuable. No, knowing thyself is the only thing. It is the only thing. It is the only thing that unlocks abundance. It is the only thing that unlocks emotional freedom. Knowing yourself and what you love about yourself and cultivating that love is the only thing. Because the world is really, really ugly without it. The world is a really, really dark place without it. So find it. That's what I have for you today on that topic. I hope that you got something amazing out of this. Just to do a quick recap, we talked about the energy of a soul, which you don't have to do anything about. They're the souls of loved ones who've ascended from the body and have managed to bridge the gap and be present with you. Give gratitude to that. The energy of ghosts and hauntings are memories and not real people. Give yourself clear energy space. Give the home, the place, the object, Reiki, healing energy, channeled energy. They're not demons. They're not souls. They're not actually people needing anything. They're just memories. And then emotional entities. They only exist because we create them and they can disappear just as quickly. And you have the power over that to take care of that before it becomes big and all-consuming. If you have any questions about that, please continue to write them, and I would be happy to answer them in any capacity that I have. And I would love to share with you what is coming up in August, because August is amazing. Now, so far, over the course of the last week, the energy is starting to shift, and the energy is shifting coming into August, and the word for August is abundance. Now, the abundance coming in for August means that we need to be in the place of receiving and receiving abundantly, because the Lion's Gate portal that will align with Sirius and our planet and the sun and the moon and all the things, that is going to be opening up on 8/8, and it is going to really solidify and anchor some of these absolute miracle frequency quantum states of energy in the cells of our body. And we want to be in a place of receiving all of that as deeply as you can. We are waking up in the world on this planet, and intuition and psychic senses are waking up at a facilitated rate. And we're going to see that in August, and it's going to be so huge. It's going to be so huge, you guys. Like, whew. Moving into the moon cycles of August is also going to be very intense, because they're going to compound our ability to manifest our realities and what we want in the world. I have a boy. What's up, baby? It's not in here, baby. It's in your room. That was my youngest son. They're getting ready for bed. Ugh, my heart. He's getting so big. He's going to be 7 on August 31st. I can't believe it's been 7 years. So the alignments that's happening with the moon and the sun. So we're going to feel this magnified energy, really bringing in our ability to manifest and to create. Yes, I can feel it already. Yeah, it's been happening for the last few days, and it's going to continue all the way through August. This last half of the year, y'all, is going to be astounding. We are going to absolutely reap what we have sown over the last couple of years. And if you have sown seeds of challenge, you're going to see challenges. Those challenges may feel like they're insurmountable, but they're not, because everything is in a state of flux. Everything is in a state of changing, and everything is in the process of waking up in a new way. Now, my personal specialty, and I'm really honing in on this focus over the next coming months, is really honing in on the genetic emotional memory that has been given to each individual through our ancestral line. I'm really honing in on working with people around their genetic emotional memory, how to reset it, how to access the memories that are useful, and let go of the trauma of our ancestors, because we are here to experience our own sovereignty. We are here to experience our own sovereignty, and we no longer need the survival fight or flight from the past. We are ready to break free of that. We're ready to experience embodiment, because this body is just one little facet of the experience. We are a soul bringing the universe through our body in an experience, and we are getting ready to do that on a cellular genetic level. And I am here for this, and I am so excited, and I'm so grateful to each and every one of you here with me live. Everybody here watching the replay, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time today for this, because you are powerful, and the world needs your voice. The world needs your voice to be heard, to be seen in the world. You have a very powerful, magical gift, and the world is asking you to come out into the world with it now, and to hold that light for yourself and for others in this completely new and transformative way. So in the light of that, I'm really, really excited, because coming up on August 6th, 7th, and 8th, I am facilitating a genetic emotional memory reset experience. It will be through Zoom, and all of the emails went out for that today. If you didn't get an email and that is something you are interested in, please leave it in the comments so that I can make sure to get you the sign up link ASAP. This experience is going to cover genetic emotional memory in the nervous system and in the brain and the brainstem. And we are going to tie that together with the chakras of the body to ground it down in your current ability to manifest, in your current ability to create what you desire. But it's going to reset the nervous system to come out of that fight or flight mode, not just for the current life experience you're having, but from the imprinted memories of the trauma from your parents and your grandparents. It is going to bring about a sense of inner peace like you have probably never experienced unless you have worked with me on that level before, as that is the sole focus of my 5-month mentorships, is activating the frequency of miracles in the cell and the genetic code and embodying the soul that you are for healing, for expansion, for clarity, for abundance, for so many things. When we can bring that into balance and reset that genetic emotional memory, you're going to experience a balance, a power, a confidence, an ability, and expand in your intuitive ability, expand in your confidence in it and your sense of knowing, to make that easier and easier as you embark on it. For those of you that are healers, which I feel like everybody that's on today, you are a healer. Even if you don't feel like you're serving in the capacity of a healer, you have it and it is within you. And you would not be so drawn to me if it wasn't. And you have that ability to possess great healing for yourself and for those in your world. And so if any of that speaks to you, that is coming up August 6th, 7th, and 8th, which is actually the portal alignment. We'll be finishing out strong and confidently on that day, bringing everything together in our energy bodies and lighting it all up to send to the universe saying, hey, I'm here, I'm a light, I'm plugged in, I'm ready. Oh, it's going to be so magical. If you need the link to that, let me know. It is going to be from 12 to 2 p.m. on each of those 3 days. And the replays will be available, but they will only be available for a short time. So if you can't catch it live, you will have a couple of days to watch the replay before I take it down. So if you need the link, if you haven't signed up yet, let me know. Put it in the comments. And I want to leave you with this beautiful, beautiful message that I am available and open to working with 2 lovely souls one-on-one in the frequency of miracles in my 5-month mentorship or my 10-week mentorship program. If that calls to you, please reach out to me and let me know. I would love to have a consult and see what we can work out for your expansion, for your abundance, for your healing, for your experience of life to be emotionally free. So I love you all so, so very much. I hope you got something amazing out of this video. If you did, please send it to somebody who you know and love or would think would like this kind of information. I cannot wait to do this again. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, the August newsletter is going out on the 1st, and it's going to list everything going on for the month. So if you're not on it, let me know and I'll get you the link so you can be on it and know everything that's going on and when all of my live streams are in August. So I love you all so much. Go get some amazing rest and dream those amazing dreams and travel across the galaxies, as I know many of you do. And I will see you all very, very soon.